So, in decoded section that is important for mains, we are going to take a look at two important articles. The first one is obviously IONO versus JUNO on neutrino sort of observations. So, important analysis from the perspective of science and technology. We rarely get articles on science and technology part. So, important most of the time we have all seen the neutrino related developments in India, particularly the neutrino observatory that was actually proposed to build underground in the Theni particularly is the region in Tamil Nadu. But due to local opposition, due to tribal opposition, this particular observatory, the work on it has not started yet at all. But in the meantime, China raced ahead and built its own neutrino observatory, and that has given the head start for China. See, most of the time neutrino research in the neutrino research and India, the international collaboration in that regard is going to happen in through this particular sort of building of the neutrino observatory. But now China has raced ahead. In Chinese observatory there is a contribution, it is an international project. So, China has pulled off feat in this regard, which is very vital in neutrino, particularly science. So, essentially neutrinos are these are the particles which are ubiquitous, but they does not interact with the particle, or they does not interact with the other mass. So, essentially it does not have any sort of notable impact at all, but that is why observing them is very difficult. But because they are so abundant, they may hold an important or vital sort of fundamental physics when it comes to neutrino sort of physics. So, essentially this particular article is important. So, China has finished, what the article says is China has finished building its Jiangmen underground neutrino observatory JUNO, a bittersweet development given that India based neutrino observatory INO has been in limbo for years, as I said. So, it is a very bittersweet sort of development. On the one hand, world science will develop, or it will have new leader on neutrinos, but neutrino research in particular, but India has been left behind. Both JUNO and IONO were designed to study subatomic particles called neutrinos, which are very hard to catch because they rarely interact with the matter. So, as I earlier said, neutrinos does not interact with matter mass at all. This is why both IONO and JUNO are huge. The more matter there is, the more interactions there will be between the neutrinos and matter, and thus more opportunities for studying them. So, very important. Most of the time for studying them, for detecting them also, you need to go underground where there is less sort of disturbance. So, essentially that is why you must have seen that ice cube neutrino observatory, that is sometimes back it was in news. So, that was also built under almost the feet of ice. So, essentially very important because these are very sensitive as well. So, let us look at some of the basics of neutrino before going further. So, neutrinos are the subatomic particles belonging to lepton family. They are electronically neutral, just remember that there is no charge associated with neutrino, and neutrinos are formed in the beta decay. So, that particular aspect is also very important. We are not going to go too deep into the science part of it here. So, the beta decay is associated with neutrinos, remember that. They interact only via the weak nuclear force and gravity, making them extremely difficult to detect as well. Types of neutrinos are also important, you can go through them, like muon neutrino, tau neutrino, electron neutrino is also there. These are some of the types. So, essentially important from the perspective of say particularly studying our universe also, because they are so abundant in the universe, yet very difficult to detect as well. So, they are natural sources like sun, supernova, cosmic rays, earth. Earth also actually emit neutrinos. We are not able to detect them also. Artificial sources like nuclear reactors and nuclear reactors, particularly in beta decay, as I said, are associated with the neutrinos. So particle accelerators also, because of the beta decay associated in the atomic sort of in the nuclear accelerators, we can have neutrinos being formed in the in artificial sources like these as well. Properties, you can clearly see there is a mass is very tiny, it is a non-zero, but it is very less. Spin is important, it is a fermion with half spin. Interaction, it is a weak nuclear force only, it interacts very weakly to the matter, particularly the force also. It can pass through light years of lead without interacting as well. So it can interact, it can penetrate anything. So that is the reason, that is why it is very difficult to detect as well. So it is very important because it holds the clues for the formation of universe as well, because these are some of the there may be some of the neutrino particles which may have emerged from the origin of the universe as well. So most of the time they actually convey new form of say science, particularly in cosmology. It is very important in evolution of the universe, evolution of our own solar system. The neutrino science holds very important sort of clues. So neutrino detectors are there, as I earlier said. Ice cube is important in this regard, you can clearly see in particularly Antarctica. There is in recent times super Kamiokande of Japan also, it is a water Chernobyl detector. Sudbury Neutrino Observatory in Canada also, it is in heavy water, it is an heavy water reactor or detector. So what happened is IUNO's ambitious scale and location challenge. So location here is important. See, there are local communities that were getting displaced due to the formation of this particular observatory. So that is why there is a local opposition to the formation of IUNO itself. So India based Neutrino Observatory planned a massive 50-kilometer detector which could not be operated inside a conventional lab. The detector was to be installed inside a mountain in Theni, that is in Tamil Nadu, using the mountain's rock as a natural shield to avoid constructing an expensive separate structure. See, the idea here is to actually save the costs associated with the building of the detector. It is almost 50 kiloton detector, and it needs to have sort of very important very important location, so that there is less disturbance, but you cannot actually build this in lab. So that is why they are trying to build this particular experiment, or this particular they are trying to actually place this particular detector under the Theni hills, but obviously there was local opposition. IUNO failed to anticipate the public controversy or follow procedural safeguards which could have helped manage public sentiment in this regard. So there is public sentiment issue, obviously the project was stalled. So that is why there were delays, and competition from China helped as well in this regard. See, most of the time delays in IUNO occurred in late 2010s, a period during which China's JUNO project advanced rapidly. IUNO, particularly IUNO, had hoped to secure foreign grants and investments as well, but JUNO's earlier timeline, originally 2020, actually delayed by 5 years, created pressure in this regard. So there was this timeline associated with the neutrino observatory, particularly IUNO and JUNO. JUNO went ahead, or surged ahead in say global interest, obviously foreign grants and investments particularly. Had IUNO adjusted its timeline to 2025, it might have had a slightly better chance of say getting ahead of JUNO in this regard, but it didn't happen particularly. JUNO has released its first analysis with 2 preprint papers now. So it has started the research, it got completed, it has started the research, and it is an international collaboration project with Russia, US, UK and scientists involved from these countries: Armenia, Belgium, Brazil, Taiwan, Finland, France, particularly Pakistan, Slovakia, Italy, Czech Republic and Thailand. These countries have also contributed to JUNO. So it became like an international collaboration. So essentially India missed the bus, that is what our article here argues. Notably, Indian researchers were absent, reflecting a pattern seen in other scientific collaborations like China Chang'e 5 lunar sample mission as well. So what is missing here is Indian scientist name. So essentially this particular aspect is also very, very important. See, neutrino physics, neutrinos are very elusive particles that exist in three flavors and oscillate between them during say travel. Determining the neutrino mass ordering is a key open question in physics particularly. We are not going to go too much into it because that is not an important aspect here. So this is something you can go through. So that is not much of an important aspect of the article. So what are the broader implications of this particular India missing the bus? So the INO delay highlights the challenges of large scale science projects in India, including public opposition, procedural gaps and timing against international competition. JUNO's early progress illustrates the advantage of international collaborations here. So essentially India's expertise in neutrino physics and lunar sample analysis remains strong, but participation in global projects has been limited so far. So what the article says is India missed the bus when it comes to international collaborations. So India needs to have fixed timelines to actually compete globally. So to certain extent this particular the missed opportunity for say developing of say neutrino science in this regard is harmful for overall Indian science. So missing a major opportunity like the INO does not guarantee a simple second chance. Future efforts will require more sophisticated and technologically advanced projects. So India had the capability in the previous decade to address a significant scientific mystery, but with JUNO advancing, India may lack the resources to tackle the next frontier, which will demand specialized technologies. So what will happen is India, see mostly if there is something else to happen in neutrino physics now, it has to involve some new science also, some new experiments. So we cannot, even if allow the INO observatory to go forward now, whatever the JUNO has observed and achieved in this regard, it will definitely surpass whatever we achieve means afterwards. Obviously going forward the international collaboration will be an issue in neutrino physics particularly. So that is why the ingenuity and resourcefulness of young Indian scientists remain a strong hope for future breakthroughs. So our scientists, our young scientists are very ingenious. So we are going to see whether there can be some new aspect of say neutrino scientists that is yet to be discovered, that we will actually able to surpass China in that regard as well. So we are hopeful in that regard. A key lesson is that the project readiness depends not just on scientific preparedness, but also on socio-political and logistical conditions on the ground. This is also important, to do science you need to have the inclusive aspect, you need to have public awareness as well. So essentially scientific preparedness needs to actually cooperative or needs to coordinate with socio-political and logistical conditions associated, so that the project can go ahead on time and we will complete the project timelines as well, and the global collaboration in this regard remains very strong. So this is the practice question, very, very important. The next article, that is about say mental health and reproductive rights. So see, most of the time in recent times we have seen the developments when it comes to mental health, and particularly how the pregnant women, particularly under the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, they can approach the court for termination of pregnancy. Obviously there are gestation periods associated with it. So essentially what the article now argues or says is few developments have recently taken place in Indian courts in relation to the right to mental health. So the first and foremost, Supreme Court in Sukhdev Saha and versus State of Andhra Pradesh. So remember the Supreme Court judgment here, note down the Supreme Court judgment. Sukhdev Saha versus State of Andhra Pradesh read mental health as an integral component of the right to life and personal liberty. So mental health as a part of Article 21 of the Constitution. So very, very important argument or judgment of the Supreme Court. Just remember this particular actually case name. You can directly utilize such cases directly in your answers. Secondly, the Delhi High Court overturned an order allowing abortion on the ground of grave injury to mental health in case of 16-year-old rape survivor. And third, a PIL was filed before the Punjab and Haryana High Court, praying that Section 32 of the Medical Termination of the Pregnancy Act of 1971, which states that abortion may be provided on the ground of grave injury to mental health, be declared unconstitutional. So these are two separate developments. First and foremost, the article gives us very important idea about say mental health as a fundamental right under Article 21. Second, gives us the context of Delhi High Court denying the pregnancy or abortion to the 16-year-old rape survivor, say on the grounds that of grave injury to mental health. And in the third case, Punjab and Haryana High Court, the section of medical termination of pregnancy is challenged. See, the important aspect is the overlap of say mental health and reproductive rights. So, what is the fundamental act here is Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971. You can clearly see the basics of the act. Just go through the basics here. I am not going to go too much detail into it. These are gestation limits, consent decrees and all those key amendments, particularly 2021 amendment here is very important. 2021 amendment to MTP Act extended gestation limit from 20 to 24 weeks for certain categories, introduced state level medical board for cases beyond 24 weeks, and allowed abortions for any woman regardless of marital status. So these are important amendments that were brought in Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971 in 2021. So what the article here argues is essentially that mental health and its importance in pregnancy. So mental health of pregnant women is very vital. Studies suggest that 1 in 3 to 1 in 5 women in India face mental health issues during pregnancy and postpartum. So very important data statistic here. Mental health during pregnancy is influenced by social determinants in financial stability and nutrition, education, culture, caste and gender based violence. Ignoring systemic and cultural issues as soon as son preference, early marriage, intimate partner violence, marital rape and contraceptive sabotage diminishes the role of mental health in maternal well-being. So unwanted pregnancies have lasting effects on women's physical and mental health. So essentially the exception that we have to medical termination of pregnancy in section 3(2) is very important. It actually allows certain pregnancies to be terminated or abortion to happen on the grounds of grave injury to mental health. Although that particular section is challenged in the Punjab and Haryana High Court, we are going to see whether what sort of decision the Supreme Court or rather the Punjab and Haryana High Court gives in that regard. Mental health is important aspect when it comes to pregnant women. See, legal and policy challenges are also discussed in the article. A 2025 report particularly by the Center for Health Equity Law and Policy notes that despite judicial recognition of mental health as a general state of well-being, many courts actually deny abortion citing absence of diagnosable mental illness. So essentially the article states that this particular requirement of diagnosable mental illness does not necessarily indicate the absence of mental health issues. So what exactly is the WHO has said about the mental health is it is a state of well-being where an individual can realize their potential, cope with life stresses, work productivity and contribute to the community. Courts have relied on this definition. Reducing mental health to the presence or absence of illness is discriminatory. That is what the article argues. But see, most of the time court needs to have or needs to see the proof of mental health issue as well at hand as well. So mental health assessment, how you actually diagnose mental health if there is no underlying a detectable condition of mental health. You cannot just claim there is that you are mentally ill or I am stressed or I am depressed. Obviously in the court of law the evidence works, but the article argues there can be element of undetectable mental health like deep distress, postpartum distress as well. So, article here bats for say the wider definition of mental health to be considered by the courts particularly. So, implications for reproductive rights and gender equality, obviously it will have the implications of gender of for the reproductive rights and gender equality. Safeguarding mental health is not just about permitting abortion, it affirms women's rights to dignity, choice and the highest attainable standards of health guaranteed under the constitution. So, that is what the article's conclusion is, but to certain extent article is little bit gives us one sided picture. So, but the core here is women's mental health and reproductive rights are somehow somewhat interconnected, and there is a room for say reform in medical termination of pregnancy act itself. So, to certain extent this particular article is important. Some of the Supreme Court judgment, one Supreme Court judgment and the name of the case is vital. So, just note down the High Court observations and Supreme Court judgments in this regard. This is an important practice question as well. So, that is it from my side, and stay tuned for another edition of Daily News List. Thank you.